Danny Reeves wiped grease from his hands onto his already dirty coveralls and sat down on the cold metal floor of the maintenance corridor. His lunch bag contained the same thing it always did: a slightly squashed sandwich, a small container of instant noodles, and a bottle of water that had seen better days. Nothing fancy, but it was food, and after 6 hours of crawling through engine compartments, he was hungry enough to eat anything. Frontier Station Coldwell was not the kind of place people visited by choice. It sat at the very edge of known space, a refueling stop for ships that had nowhere else to go. The station was old, the equipment older, and the people who worked here were either running from something or had simply given up on finding anything better. Danny fell into the first category, though he tried not to think about it too much. He had just taken his first bite when he heard the noise. It started as a scraping sound, metal on metal, coming from somewhere above him. Danny looked up at the air vent just as it exploded outward in a shower of bolts and torn metal. Something large crashed through the opening and landed hard on the floor in front of him. For a moment, Danny could not move. He just stared at the creature sprawled across the corridor. It had scales that shimmered between blue and silver. Even under the harsh fluorescent lights, wings, torn and bleeding, lay crumpled against its sides. 4 legs ended in claws that scraped against the floor as the creature tried to stand and failed. It was roughly the size of a horse, though it looked like it should have been bigger. The ribs showed too clearly under the scales. This thing was starving. The creature's head lifted, and Danny found himself looking into eyes that were far too intelligent to belong to any animal. They were golden, with vertical pupils, and they held something Danny recognized immediately because he had seen it in his own mirror often enough: desperation. Station alarms began to wail. Red lights flashed along the corridor walls. Somewhere in the distance, Danny could hear boots running toward his location. Security would be here in minutes, maybe less. The creature spoke. Its voice was rough, like someone who had not used their vocal cords in a very long time, but the words were clear enough in universal standard. "Can I have leftovers?" Danny blinked. Of all the things he had expected an alien creature to say, that was not on the list. He looked down at his sandwich, then back at the creature. It was still watching him with those desperate golden eyes. "You want my lunch?" Danny asked, which felt like a stupid question even as he said it. "Hungry," the creature said. "Very hungry, please." The boots were getting closer. Danny heard voices shouting orders, something about weapons and containment protocols. He made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone watching. He picked up his sandwich and held it out. The creature moved faster than something that injured should have been able to move. It snatched the sandwich from his hand and swallowed it in 2 bites, barely chewing. Then it looked at him again, still hungry. Danny handed over the container of noodles. He had not even opened it yet, but that did not seem to matter. The creature bit through the plastic container and ate everything inside, including half the container itself. "Stop right there." The voice came from the end of the corridor. Danny turned to see 5 security officers, all pointing weapons at the creature. Their leader, a man named Phillips, who Danny vaguely recognized from the station cantina, stepped forward. "Step away from the Draconith, Reeves." "That thing is dangerous." "Draconith?" Danny repeated. He had heard that word before in history files. Ancient aliens, supposedly extinct for thousands of years. Legend said they had been powerful enough to reshape worlds. "It crashed through 3 secured sections to get here," Phillips said, keeping his weapon trained on the creature. "We need to neutralize it before it causes more damage." Danny looked back at the creature. It had curled up on the floor, wings tucked close to its body, head resting on its front claws. It was watching the security team with obvious fear, but it had not moved away from Danny. "She was hungry," Danny said quietly. "She just wanted food." "It spoke to you?" Phillips sounded surprised. "Yes?" She asked if she could have leftovers. Danny stood slowly, placing himself between the security team and the creature. "She is not attacking anyone. Look at her. She is hurt and starving." "Our orders are to secure any unidentified entities," Phillips said, though he sounded less certain now. "Commander Wells is on his way. Nobody moves until he gets here." So they waited. Danny sat back down on the floor, his back against the wall, very aware of the large alien creature less than 2 meters away. The security team kept their weapons ready but did not advance. The creature, for its part, seemed content to simply lie there, occasionally glancing at Danny as if to make sure he had not disappeared. When Commander Wells arrived 15 minutes later, He took one look at the scene and rubbed his temples. Someone explained to me why we have a supposedly extinct dragon in my maintenance corridor. She came through the air vents, Phillips reported. Reeves fed her his lunch before we could secure the area. Wells turned his attention to Danny. You fed it? She was hungry, sir, Danny said. She asked politely. It talks? Yes, sir. Commander Wells stared at the creature for a long moment. The dragon stared back, still curled up on the floor. Can you understand me? Wells asked. Yes, the creature said, her voice a little stronger now that she had some food in her stomach. Thank you for not shooting. That is still under consideration, Wells said, though his tone suggested he was mostly joking. Do you have a name? Ash? All right, Ash, why are you on my station? Fleeing, searching, starving. Each word seemed to cost her effort. Many places. All hostile. This one smelled different. Smelled kind. She looked at Danny when she said the last part. Wells followed her gaze. Reeves, do you have any idea what you have gotten yourself into? Danny shook his head. No, sir. But she was hungry and I had food. It seemed like the right thing to do. The right thing, Wells repeated slowly. He looked at the dragon again, then at his security team, then back at Danny. Phillips, have medical send someone down here who knows xenobiology. Tell them to bring food, real food, not whatever emergency rations we have lying around, and get maintenance to seal that vent before anything else decides to drop in. Sir, the regulations... I am aware of the regulations, Phillips. I am also aware that we have a talking dragon who asked politely for leftovers. I want answers before I decide what to do next. Wells turned to leave, then paused. Reeves, you are staying here until I figure this out. Try not to feed her anything else without checking with medical first. Yes, sir, Danny said. As the commander walked away and the security team relaxed slightly, Ash lifted her head and looked at Danny again. Thank you, she said quietly. First kindness in long time. You are welcome, Danny replied, suddenly realizing his hands were shaking. He had no idea what he had just started, but somehow, looking into those grateful golden eyes, he did not regret it. Not even a little bit. 3 days had passed since Ash crashed into Danny's life, and the station had not stopped buzzing about it. Medical had cleared her of any diseases, fed her properly, and treated her wounds. The torn wings were healing faster than anyone expected, though the doctors said it would be weeks before she could fly again. In the meantime, she refused to leave the repair bay where Danny worked. Commander Wells had tried everything. He offered her better quarters, a larger space, even access to the station's observation deck. Ash simply curled up in the corner of the repair bay and said she felt safe there. Danny suspected it had more to do with him than the location, though he could not figure out why. He was just a mechanic who had shared his lunch. Right now, he was under a transport hauler, replacing a faulty fuel line while Ash watched from her corner. She had been asking questions all morning, curious about everything he did. Why does the fuel need 2 paths? She asked, her voice much clearer now that she had recovered some strength. Backup system, Danny explained, not bothering to look out from under the hauler. If one line fails, the other keeps the engine running long enough to land safely. Redundancy. Smart. There was a pause. My people built similar concepts into our ships. Different methods, same purpose. Danny slid out from under the hauler and sat up, wiping his hands on a rag. Your people, the Draconeth. Everyone says you went extinct thousands of years ago. Not extinct, hidden. Ash lifted her head, scales catching the light. We chose isolation over participation. The galaxy wanted to use us. Our technology, our abilities. We refused to become weapons. So you just left? We found a place far from everything. Built a colony, lived in peace for 10,000 years. Her voice grew quieter, but isolation has costs. We forgot things. Our ship began to fail. Our numbers decreased. I am young, barely adult by our standards, but I volunteered to search for help. What happened? I visited 7 systems before this one. Each time I was met with weapons fire. Some wanted to capture me. Some wanted to kill me for the value of my scales. Some simply feared what I represented. She looked directly at him. You were the first to offer kindness without asking for anything in return. Danny felt uncomfortable under that golden gaze. I just gave you my lunch. You gave food to a stranger when you did not have much to give. You stood between me and weapons to protect me. These are not small things, Danny Reeves. Before he could respond, the bay doors opened and Commander Wells walked in with two civilians Danny had never seen before. One was a tall woman in expensive clothing, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. The other was a man wearing the uniform of the Terran Coalition military, though he had enough medals on his chest to suggest high rank. "Reeves, take a break," Wells said, his tone making it clear this was not a request. Danny stood slowly, suddenly aware of how dirty his coveralls were compared to the visitors. "Sir, this is Counselor Hayes from the Merchant Consortium and General Briggs from Terran Coalition Research Division. They would like to speak with Ash." The dragon rose to her feet, wings spreading slightly in what Danny had learned was a defensive posture. "I have nothing to say to them." Counselor Hayes smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. "We simply want to help, dear. The Merchant Consortium has resources that could assist your colony. Food, medicine, technology. In exchange for what?" Ash asked. "Access, knowledge sharing, perhaps a few samples for study." Hayes pulled out a data pad. "We have drawn up a very generous contract." "No, you have not even looked at the terms," General Briggs said, stepping forward. "The Terran Coalition is prepared to offer military protection for your colony. We can ensure no one threatens your people again." "In exchange for what?" Ash repeated. "Cooperation with our research programs. Your species possesses abilities we do not fully understand. Imagine what we could accomplish together." Danny saw Ash's claws dig into the metal floor. Her scales, which had been shimmering blue, began to darken toward black. He had learned that color change meant she was angry or frightened. She said no, Danny heard himself say. Everyone turned to look at him. "You heard her. She does not want your contracts or your research programs." "This does not concern you, mechanic," Hayes said dismissively. "Actually, it does." Commander Wells crossed his arms. "Ash has made it clear she considers Reeves a friend. Station regulations say I cannot force any sapient being to interact with visitors against their will. So unless Ash changes her mind, this conversation is over." Briggs stepped closer to Wells, voice dropping low. "Commander, do you have any idea how many regulations you are violating by harboring a Draconith? The legal implications alone are being handled by Station Legal Counsel," Wells interrupted. "Now, if you are finished, I have a station to run." After the visitors left, Wells let out a long breath. "That is going to cause problems." "They will come back," Ash said quietly. "They always do. They see value, not a person." Danny walked over to stand beside her. "We won't let them take you. You cannot stop them. They have power, influence, ships. What do you have?" "Stubbornness," Danny said with a slight smile. "I am very good at being stubborn." For the first time since he had met her, Ash made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I have noticed." Then her expression grew serious. "Danny Reeves, I wish to offer you something. My people have a tradition for life debts. You saved me when I was dying. You protected me when others would not. I want to honor that. You don't owe me anything. This is not about owing. This is about choosing." Ash reached up with one foreclaw and carefully pulled a single scale from her chest, right over where Danny assumed her heart would be. She held it out to him. "Among Draconith, this is the highest honor. A bond scale. If you accept it, we will be connected. You will feel what I feel. I will know when you need help. It is permanent and cannot be undone." Danny stared at the scale. It was roughly the size of his palm, gleaming with inner light. "Why would you do this?" "Because in all my searching, you are the only one who saw me instead of what I could provide. You are my friend, Danny Reeves. I would like you to be my family." Danny was not sure what made him do it. Maybe it was the loneliness he had carried since fleeing Earth. Maybe it was the desperate hope in Ash's eyes. Maybe it was simply that for the first time in years someone actually wanted him around. He reached out and took the scale. The moment his fingers touched it, the world exploded into sensation. He felt Ash's relief, her joy, her fierce determination to protect him the same way he had protected her. He felt her hunger, not for food now, but for connection, for belonging. He felt her fear of the people who wanted to use her, and her absolute trust in him. And underneath it all, he felt something else. A presence ancient and vast, like touching the edge of an ocean he could not see the end of. The collective memory of 10,000 years of Draconith history, just barely brushing against his mind. When the sensation faded, Danny found himself sitting on the floor, breathing hard. The scale had dissolved into his hand, leaving behind a faint shimmer under his skin. right over his heart. "What was that?" he managed to ask. "The bond," Ash said, settling down beside him. She sounded tired but happy. "You carry part of me now. I carry part of you. We are family." Danny touched his chest, feeling the warmth there. He could still sense Ash, a constant presence in the back of his mind. Her contentment felt like sunshine. "I can feel you, and I can feel you. Your sadness, your determination, your kindness that you try to hide." She gently bumped her head against his shoulder. "You are not alone anymore, Danny Reeves. Neither am I." Commander Wells, who had been watching the whole exchange in stunned silence, finally spoke. "Do you two have any idea what you just did? That bond has not been formed in 10,000 years. Every xenobiologist in the galaxy is going to want to study you." "Let them try," Danny said, surprised by the firmness in his own voice. "Ash is family now. Nobody takes family." Through the bond, he felt Ash's approval, warm and strong. Whatever came next, they would face it together. That was when the station's communication system crackled to life. "Commander Wells, we have multiple ships dropping out of FTL near the station. They are requesting permission to dock. They say they are here for the Draconith." Wells swore quietly. "How many ships?" 15 and counting, sir. More arriving every minute." Danny and Ash looked at each other. Through their bond, they did not need words. The storm had arrived, and their friendship was about to be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. The repair bay had become a fortress, though Danny never intended it that way. He had simply done what mechanics do when they want to keep people out. He had locked every door, disabled every override code, and welded extra plates over the access panels. The bay was built to withstand the vacuum of space, which meant it could also withstand a lot of people trying to get inside. Outside, the situation had gone from bad to worse. 23 ships now surrounded Frontier Station Coldwell, and more were arriving every hour. Reporters, treasure hunters, scientists, military vessels, and plenty of people whose intentions were unclear. They all wanted one thing, and she was currently curled up in the corner of the bay, watching Danny work. "You should eat something," Ash said. Her voice concerned through both sound and the bond they shared. Danny could feel her worry like a weight in his chest. "Not hungry," he replied, tightening a bolt on the reinforcement he was adding to the main door. His hands were shaking from too much coffee and not enough sleep. 3 days had passed since the ship started arriving, and he had barely rested. "Danny Reeves, you are making yourself sick. I am keeping us safe. You are exhausting yourself." Ash stood and walked over to him, her wings rustling. They were almost completely healed now, the torn membranes knitted back together in thin silver lines. "I can feel your fatigue through the bond. Please rest." Before Danny could argue, the communication panel crackled to life. Commander Wells's voice came through, sounding even more tired than Danny felt. "Reeves, we need to talk." Danny activated the screen, and Wells appeared, looking like he had aged 10 years in the past week. Behind him, Danny could see the chaos of the command center. People rushing back and forth, screens flashing with incoming messages. "What happened now?" Danny asked. "The Merchant Consortium filed a legal claim with the Galactic Council. They are arguing that Draconith fall under ancient salvage laws because they were declared extinct." Wells rubbed his eyes. "The Terran Coalition filed a competing claim under xenobiological research protocols. Both groups have lawyers arguing their cases right now, and the Council is actually listening. Ash is not property," Danny said flatly. "I know that. You know that. But the law is complicated when it comes to species that have been gone for thousands of years." Wells looked directly at the camera. "There is more. General Briggs filed a formal complaint against you for interfering with a military research opportunity. If the Council sides with them, I will have to arrest you." Through the bond, Danny felt Ash's spike of fear and anger. He reached up and touched the spot over his heart where her scale had merged with him. The gesture calmed them both. "Let them try," Danny said. "I am trying to help you, Reeves. Both of you. But I am one station commander against organizations that have more money and power than I will ever see. I need you to be realistic about this situation." "I am being realistic. That is why I am not opening this door." Wells was about to respond when alarms started blaring in the background. He turned away from the screen, and Danny heard him shouting orders. When he turned back, his face was grim. "We have a problem. One of the consortium ships just launched drones. They are heading for your bay." "What kind of drones?" "Cutting drones. They're going to try to breach the hull and extract Ash by force. Wells started typing rapidly on his console. I am dispatching security, but they will take time to get there. You need to... The communication cut out as something slammed into the exterior wall of the bay. Danny felt the impact through the floor, and emergency lights began flashing. Another impact followed, then another. Through the reinforced walls, he could hear the high-pitched whine of plasma cutters. They are trying to cut their way in, Ash said unnecessarily. Danny could feel her fear through the bond, but also her determination. Danny, you need to leave. If you are not here when they break through, I am not leaving you. They want me, not you. If you go, you will be safe. And what happens to you? Danny grabbed his toolbox and ran to the wall where the cutting sounds were loudest. Do you really think they will just ask you nicely to come with them? He did not wait for an answer. Instead, he opened an access panel and started rerouting power to the external hull plating. If he could create an electromagnetic field on the other side, it might disrupt the drone's cutting tools. It was a desperate idea, but desperate was all he had right now. The cutting stopped for a moment, and Danny allowed himself to hope. Then he heard a different sound, a deep thrumming that made his teeth ache. They had switched to sonic drills. This is not going to work, he said, more to himself than to Ash. We need another plan. There is one plan that works, Ash said quietly. I surrender myself. They leave you alone, what? No. Danny, I said no. He spun around to face her, surprised by the intensity of his own voice. You are family. I do not give up family. Not again. Not ever. Through the bond, he felt Ash's confusion, and underneath it the question she had never asked. He took a breath and started talking, words spilling out faster than he meant them to. I had a family on Earth, a wife, a daughter. There was an accident at the factory where I worked. Structural collapse. I was supposed to be on shift that day, but I switched with someone else because I wanted to go to my daughter's school play. His hands were shaking again. The section collapsed. 40 people died, including the man who took my shift. My wife blamed me, said I was a coward for not being there. She left, took my daughter with her. I have not seen them in 3 years. Danny sat down hard on the floor. I ran away because I could not face what I had done, or what I did not do. I came out here to hide from everything, and then you crashed into my life and asked for leftovers, and for the first time since the accident, I did something that mattered. I helped someone, and now they want to take you away, and I cannot let that happen. I cannot fail someone else. Ash moved closer and gently pressed her head against his shoulder. Through the bond, he felt her understanding, her compassion, and something else. Absolute, unwavering loyalty. You did not fail your family, she said softly. You survived. There is no shame in survival. And you are not failing me. You have given me more than food or protection. You have given me hope. The sonic drills stopped. For a moment there was silence. Then a new voice came through the communication panel, feminine and confident. Mechanic Reeves, this is Dr. Patricia Okonkwo. I am transmitting a security override code to your console. Please do not be alarmed. Danny's console beeped and data started scrolling across the screen. Who are you? Until approximately 10 minutes ago, I was the senior xenobiologist on General Briggs's research vessel. I have resigned that position and am currently running for my life, but that is less important right now. There was the sound of weapons fire in the background. I have information you need. The Terran Coalition does not want to study Ash. They want to weaponize her. They have plans to extract genetic material and create biological weapons using Draconith DNA. Danny felt sick. You are lying. I wish I was. I am sending you the files now. Encrypted research proposals, weapon specifications, everything. More data appeared on his screen. I could not be part of that. Nobody should be part of that. So I am defecting and I am bringing you everything I have. Why would you do this? Ash asked, speaking for the first time. Because I became a scientist to learn about life, not to destroy it. And because what you and Reeves have done, forming that bond, is the most remarkable thing I have seen in 20 years of xenobiology. It deserves protection, not exploitation. An explosion rocked the bay much closer than before. The sonic drills were working. We are out of time, Danny said, pulling up the station schematics on his console. There had to be a way out. Some path they had missed. Even if we get past the drones, there are 23 ships out there. 22, Dr. Okonkwo corrected. Captain Rodriguez of the Trade Convoy Sweet Summer just declared sanctuary status for you and Ash. He is threatening to shoot down anyone who approaches his ships. Several others are considering joining him. Why would a freighter captain risk his ship for us? Apparently, the story of a mechanic protecting a dragon has caught people's attention. There are protests happening on 15 worlds right now, demanding that Ash be given sovereignty status. Humans especially seem quite upset about the situation. Through the bond, Danny felt Ash's surprise matching his own. Humans are protesting for us? Humans are very good at deciding who counts as a person, mechanic. And apparently, they have decided that Ash counts. So yes, they are protesting. They are also sending donations, volunteers, and in some cases, private military contractors willing to fight for you. Danny stared at the screen, trying to process this information. He had spent 3 years running from human connection, convinced he did not deserve it. And now humans across multiple worlds were standing up for him and Ash. The drones will breach in approximately 5 minutes, Dr. Okonkwo continued. I have a ship docked at Maintenance Port 7. If you can get there, I can get you both off this station. We can run for Dragon's Rest, Ash's colony. It is the only place that might be safe. That is on the other side of the station, Danny protested, I know. But right now, it is the only option we have. Danny looked at Ash. Through the bond, he felt her fear and her trust in him. Whatever they decided, they would decide together. All right, he said finally. Let us go save a dragon. Outside the bay, the drones cut deeper into the hull, unaware that their target was about to slip away. Running through a space station with a dragon was not something Danny had ever imagined doing. Yet here he was, sprinting down maintenance corridors while Ash loped alongside him. Her wings were folded tight against her body to fit through the narrow passages, and her claws sparked against the metal floor with each step. Behind them, the sound of pursuit echoed through the corridors. Security drones, not the station's own, but private ones that did not care about Commander Wells's orders. The Consortium and Coalition had both sent teams to intercept them. Left here, Danny gasped, checking the station map on his handheld console. They had made it through 2 sections without being spotted, but that luck would not hold much longer. 2 more corridors to the maintenance port. I can hear them, Ash said, her ears swiveling backward. At least 8 people, maybe more. They are coordinating through radio. Can you fly yet? My wings are healed, but I have not tried. This station's corridors are too narrow for flight anyway. They rounded a corner and nearly ran straight into a security checkpoint. 2 guards in Consortium uniforms looked up in surprise. Danny did not give them time to react. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it directly into their faces. The guards stumbled back, blinded by the chemical foam, and Danny and Ash ran past them. That was clever, Ash said, sounding impressed through the bond. That was desperate, Danny corrected. They burst through a service door and into the maintenance bay area. Port 7 was straight ahead, and true to her word, Dr. Okonkwo was there. She stood beside a small scout ship that looked like it had seen better decades. Her dark skin was covered in sweat, and she was holding what appeared to be a welding torch like a weapon. About time, she said, lowering the torch when she saw them. We have maybe 2 minutes before they seal all the docking ports. Get in. Danny and Ash scrambled up the ramp. The interior of the ship was cramped, with barely enough room for the 3 of them. Ash had to curl up in the cargo area, her wings pressed uncomfortably against the walls. This ship looks like it is held together with wishes and prayer, Danny observed, strapping into the co-pilot's seat. Wishes, prayer, and illegal modifications, Dr. Okonkwo said cheerfully, sliding into the pilot's seat. Her fingers flew across the controls and the engines coughed to life with a sound that made Danny deeply uncomfortable. I have been working on this ship for 5 years. She may not be pretty, but she is fast, and more importantly, she is mine. Nobody can track her signature. The docking clamps released with a clang. Through the view screen, Danny saw Commander Wells in the station's control tower. The commander raised one hand in a gesture that might have been a salute or a farewell. Then the ship lurched forward, and they were flying into open space. Immediately, warning alarms filled the cockpit. 6 ships were moving to intercept them, weapons powering up. Hold on to something, Dr. Okonkwo said, and then the world went sideways. She flew like someone who had learned in a combat zone, which Danny later learned was exactly the case. The little scout ship twisted and dove, slipping between the larger vessels with meters to spare. Weapons fire lit up the space around them, but somehow nothing connected. Where did you learn to fly like this? Danny asked, gripping his armrest hard enough to hurt. Military academy, then 5 years as a field researcher in contested zones. You learn fast or you die. She pulled the ship into a spiral that made Danny's stomach rebel. Ash, I need you to watch the rear sensors. Tell me if anyone gets close. 3 ships pursuing, Ash reported, her voice strained. Danny could feel her nausea through the bond, mixing unpleasantly with his own. They are gaining. Not for long. Dr. Okonkwo's fingers danced across the console, and suddenly they were diving toward an asteroid field that Danny had not noticed before. Everyone hold very still. This is going to be technical. Technical, Danny quickly learned, meant flying through gaps that should not have been possible. The asteroids were dense here, spinning and colliding with each other in patterns that seemed random, but probably were not. Dr. Okonkwo threaded between them like she was running an obstacle course she had memorized. One of the pursuing ships was not as skilled. It clipped an asteroid, spun out of control, and had to break off pursuit. The other 2 kept coming, but they were more cautious now, which gave the scout ship precious distance. Preparing for FTL jump, Dr. Okonkwo announced. Danny, I need you to manually balance the power distribution. This ship's automatic systems are unreliable. Danny looked at the controls in front of him, most of which he did not recognize. I am a mechanic, not a pilot. Mechanics understand power systems better than pilots. Red indicators mean too much power. Blue means too little, green is perfect. Keep everything green while I plot the jump. It was like the most stressful puzzle Danny had ever solved. The ship was old and its systems were interconnected in ways that made no sense. Increasing power to the FTL drive reduced power to life support, which affected the shields, which changed the power draw on the engines. He had to constantly adjust, fingers moving from control to control, trying to find the balance. 10 seconds, Dr. Okonkwo said. The pursuing ships were close now, close enough that Danny could see their weapon ports glowing with charge. 20 seconds, Danny corrected, looking at his power distribution. The FTL drive needs more time to cycle. We do not have 20 seconds. Then, we are going to jump with an incomplete cycle and probably tear ourselves apart in the process. Dr. Okonkwo swore in 3 languages. Fine. Ash, can your species survive hard vacuum? For a short time, yes, Ash said. Why? Because I am dumping all life support power to the FTL drive, and we are all going to have a very unpleasant few seconds. She did not wait for agreement. The cabin temperature plummeted. Frost formed on the view screen. Danny's lungs burned as the air thinned. Through the bond, he felt Ash's distress, but also her determination to stay conscious. The ship jumped. FTL travel was supposed to be smooth, like stepping from one room into another. This was not that. The ship shuddered and screamed, metal groaning under stress it was not designed to handle. Danny saw colors that should not exist, felt like his body was being pulled in 6 directions at once. For a moment that stretched into eternity, he was convinced they were going to die. Then they were through, tumbling out of FTL space into a region of empty space that looked like every other region of empty space. Behind them, there was no pursuit. They had made it. Danny gasped as life support kicked back in, drawing painful breaths of recycled air. Is everyone alive? Alive, Ash confirmed weakly. Define alive, Dr. Okonkwo muttered, checking her instruments. But yes, we made it. That jump should have bought us some time. They will have to calculate our trajectory, and I took us through some unusual vectors. We have maybe a day before anyone can follow. A day to get to Dragon's Rest, Danny said. About that. Dr. Okonkwo pulled up a star chart. Dragon's Rest is 3 days away at safe speeds. We can make it in 1 day if we push the engines beyond their rated capacity and skip most safety protocols. Will the ship survive that? Probably not. But I did not resign my position and commit several crimes to play it safe. She looked back at them. The real question is whether you 2 are committed to this. Once we reach Dragon's Rest, there is no coming back. The consortium and coalition will not forget. You will be fugitives for the rest of your lives. Danny looked at Ash through the narrow doorway between the cockpit and cargo area. Through the bond, he felt her question, her need for reassurance that he would not regret this choice. I spent 3 years running away from my life, he said. Maybe it is time I ran toward something instead. Ash's family. Family does not abandon each other, no matter the cost. Through the bond, he felt Ash's love and gratitude hit him like a wave. It was overwhelming and warm and absolutely terrifying, because it meant someone was counting on him again. But this time he would not let them down. Then we go to Dragon's Rest, Dr. Okonkwo said, adjusting their course. I should warn you both, though. Ash, you said your colony was dying. What exactly are we flying into? A generation ship that is 10,000 years old, Ash said quietly. Life support failing. Food production below sustainable levels. Population down to 47 individuals. We have spent so long isolated that we forgot how to maintain our own systems. I was sent to find help because I am young enough to be expendable if I failed. You are not expendable, Danny said firmly. I know that now. But my people may not see it that way. They may not trust humans. We chose isolation to avoid being used. Bringing outsiders to our sanctuary breaks our oldest law. Then we will convince them, Dr. Okonkwo said. We will show them that not everyone wants to exploit them. Some people just want to help. As if to punctuate her words, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice came through, warm and friendly with a thick accent Danny could not place. Unidentified scout ship, this is Captain Rodriguez of the trade vessel Sweet Summer. We have been monitoring consortium channels. They have not figured out your trajectory yet, but they will. If you need supplies or a place to rest, my ship is at your service. Dr. Okonkwo and Danny exchanged glances. This could be a trap, she said. Or it could be help, Danny countered. Dr. Okonkwo said people were supporting us. Maybe Captain Rodriguez is one of them. Through the bond, he felt Ash's cautious hope. After being hunted for so long, the idea that someone might actually want to help felt almost impossible. Danny reached for the communication controls. They needed allies, and sometimes you just had to trust people. He pressed the transmit button. Captain Rodriguez, this is Danny Reeves. We appreciate the offer. What exactly are you proposing? The next few hours would determine whether that trust was justified or the biggest mistake of Danny's life. But looking at Ash, feeling her hope through the bond, he knew they had to try. After all, miracles had to start somewhere. Part 5. The Miracle of Cooperation. The generation ship called Dragon's Rest looked like something from a dream or a nightmare, depending on how you looked at it. It hung in the center of a purple nebula, massive and ancient, its surface covered in designs that seemed to shift when you were not looking directly at them. Parts of the ship were dark, their systems clearly dead. Other sections flickered with weak lights barely holding on. Danny pressed his face against the view screen of Captain Rodriguez's ship, which had guided them safely through the nebula's dangerous regions. Beside him, Ash was completely still, staring at her home for the first time in months. It is worse than I remember, she said quietly. How long were you gone? Dr. Okonkwo asked. 4 months. In that time, 3 more sections have gone dark. Through the bond, Danny felt Ash's fear and grief mixing together. We are dying faster than I thought. Captain Rodriguez, a stocky man with graying hair and kind eyes, put a hand on Danny's shoulder. We brought supplies. Food, medicine, basic repair materials. It is not much, but it is a start. You barely know us, Danny said. Why are you doing this? Because 40 years ago I was a refugee. My world was destroyed by corporate strip mining. I had nothing, and a stranger gave me passage on their ship. No questions asked. That kindness saved my life. Rodriguez smiled. Now I have my own ship and I pay it forward when I can. Besides, the story of a mechanic protecting a dragon has become quite popular. You have more friends than you realize. The communication console chimed. A voice came through, speaking in the same flowing language Ash used when she was emotional. She responded quickly, her tone both respectful and urgent. The elders agreed to meet with us, she translated, but they are not happy about humans coming to Dragon's Rest. We need to be very careful. Rodriguez maneuvered his ship toward a docking port on the generation ship. As they got closer, Danny could see more details. The ship was not just large, it was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. But its systems were clearly failing. Atmosphere leaked from cracks in the hull. Several of the ship's massive engine arrays were completely dark. This is going to take more than basic repairs, Dr. Okonkwo said, pulling up readings on her console. Danny, look at these power distribution patterns. Nothing makes sense. Danny studied the data. She was right. The ship's systems were interconnected in ways that violated every engineering principle he knew. It is not just technology. See these organic signatures? The ship is partially alive. Draconith engineering combines biology and technology, Ash explained. The ship grows and adapts. Or it did, when we still knew how to maintain it. Much of that knowledge was lost over generations. They docked with a gentle thud. The airlock cycled and Danny got his first smell of Dragon's Rest. It was musty, like old paper and dried flowers, with an underlying scent of something he could not identify. Not unpleasant, just alien. 3 Draconith waited for them in the docking bay. They were all significantly larger than Ash, their scales darker and marked with age. The largest, whose scales were almost black with veins of gold running through them, stepped forward. "I am Elder Frost," she said in perfect universal standard. "You must be Danny Reeves, the human who bonded with my granddaughter." "Granddaughter?" Danny looked at Ash, who suddenly seemed very interested in the floor. "I may have forgotten to mention some details about my family," Ash said through the bond. Elder Frost's expression was unreadable. Ash was declared too young for the search mission. She volunteered anyway and left without permission. "We thought she had died." "I am sorry," Ash said quietly, "but I found help." "Real help. You broke our oldest law. You brought outsiders to our sanctuary." Elder Frost looked at Danny, then at Dr. Okonkwo and Captain Rodriguez. "For 10,000 years we have survived by remaining hidden. You have compromised that." "With respect, Elder, you have not been surviving," Dr. Okonkwo said, pulling out her datapad. "Your population is below sustainable levels. Your ship is failing. Without intervention, Dragon's Rest will be completely dead within 2 years. Ash did not compromise your survival. She is trying to save it." One of the other elders, smaller and with blue-gray scales, moved forward. "And what do humans want in return for this help? Access to our technology? Our genetic material? We know what your governments wanted." "Those were not humans," Danny said firmly. "Those were corporations and militaries. They do not speak for all of us. Then who do you speak for?" Danny thought about that. "Myself. And maybe for people who think that when someone is drowning, you throw them a rope without asking what is in it for you." Elder Frost studied him for a long moment. Then surprisingly, she made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Ash told us you were straightforward. She did not mention you were also naive. Maybe I am. But I am also a mechanic, and that ship of yours needs help. So does your colony. My friend needs help. So I am here." Danny crossed his arms. "You can accept that help or not. But I am not going to pretend I want something I don't." The silence stretched out. Through the bond, Danny felt Ash's nervousness. Finally, Elder Frost nodded. "Very well. Show us what you can do, mechanic. But know this. If you betray us, bond or no bond, there will be consequences." "Fair enough," Danny said. The next 3 weeks were the hardest work of Danny's life. The generation ship was beyond anything he had dealt with before. Systems were connected through biological pathways that he could not see without Ash's help. The ship's computer systems were partially organic, requiring both mechanical repair and careful nurturing of the living components. But Danny was not alone. Captain Rodriguez brought 5 engineers from his crew, all volunteers. Dr. Okonkwo studied the Draconith biological systems and worked with the colony's healer to develop better maintenance protocols. And slowly, very slowly, more help arrived. Human volunteers came through channels that avoided military and corporate detection. Small ships brought supplies and expertise. A teacher from Earth arrived to help document Draconith knowledge before it was lost. An agricultural specialist worked with the colony to improve their food production systems. Most importantly, the younger Draconith began to work alongside the humans. At first it was just curiosity, then it became cooperation. Danny found himself teaching Draconith engineering students how to repair mechanical systems, while they taught him how to interface with the ship's biological components. The breakthrough came during the 4th week. Danny was working on the primary power distribution node, trying to understand why it kept rejecting his repairs. Ash was beside him, her head resting on his shoulder while they both stared at the problem. "I do not understand," Danny said, frustrated. "The connections are perfect. The power flow should work." "The ship does not trust you yet," Ash said. "The ship is sentient?" "Not exactly. But it responds to intent. It knows you are not Draconith." She paused. "But you are bonded to me. Maybe if we work together through the bond." It was a strange idea, but they tried it. Danny made the repairs while Ash maintained a mental connection with the ship through their bond. It was like nothing he had ever experienced. He could feel the ship's systems through Ash's senses, understanding the organic pathways in a way no scan could show him. The node accepted the repair. Power flowed properly for the first time in decades. "It worked," Danny said, stunned. "You worked," Elder Frost said from behind them. Danny had not heard her approach. Human skill combined with Draconith connection. Perhaps there is wisdom in this cooperation after all. Over the following weeks, that cooperation deepened. Humans and Draconith working together accomplished what neither could do alone. Sections of the ship that had been dark for years came back online. Food production increased. Life support stabilized. More importantly, bonds formed. Not the permanent kind that Danny and Ash shared, but friendships built through shared work and common purpose. Young Draconith started learning mechanical engineering. Human volunteers learned the basics of bioengineering from their Draconith counterparts. One evening, Danny sat in what had become the common area, eating dinner with a mixed group of humans and Draconith. The conversation flowed easily, jumping between Universal Standard and Draconith language, with people unconsciously translating for each other. Captain Rodriguez sat down beside him. "You did it, Danny, you actually did it." "Did what?" "You started something. Look around. Two species that should not work together, working together. Probably the most important moment in human history. And it started because you shared your lunch." Danny watched a Draconith named Ember, trying to explain the concept of baseball to a confused human engineer. "I just did what seemed right. That is exactly why it worked. You did not try to save the galaxy or make history. You just tried to help a friend." Rodriguez raised his drink. "To simple kindness. May it change the world." Danny raised his own drink and took a sip. Then he felt Ash's urgent alarm through the bond. "Danny, ships are approaching. Military signatures. A lot of them." Everyone in the common area froze. The easy camaraderie shattered as reality crashed back in. The Terran Coalition had found them. Elder Frost appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. "All humans need to leave immediately." "This is exactly what we feared." "You have led our enemies to us." "We did not," Danny started, but she cut him off. "It does not matter. Leave now, or we will make you leave." The room erupted into arguments. Humans protesting. Draconith divided between fear and loyalty to their new friends. In the chaos, Danny looked at Ash. Through the bond, he felt her torn between her people and him. She was being asked to choose, and it was tearing her apart. "No," Danny said quietly. Then louder, "No!" The room fell silent. "We do not run," Danny said. "Not this time. We stand together, or we fall together. That is what family does." "You are not family," Elder Frost said coldly. "Ash is, and every person in this room, human and Draconith, has become family through the work we have done together. You want us to leave? Fine. But you will watch everything we built together fall apart because you were too afraid to trust." He turned to the mixed group in the common area. "Anyone who wants to leave can go. No judgment. But I am staying. Ash needs help, Dragon's Rest needs help, and I am not abandoning either." Captain Rodriguez stood. "I am staying." "Me too," said Dr. Okonkwo. One by one, every human in the room stood. And then slowly the younger Draconith began to stand as well. Elder Frost looked at her people, then at the humans, then at Danny. "You are a fool, mechanic." "Probably. But I am a fool with a plan. Or at least the start of one." Outside the ship, the military vessels drew closer. Inside, two species prepared to stand together against a common threat. The miracle was not complete yet, but it was getting closer. The Terran Coalition battlecruiser Relentless hung in space like a knife waiting to fall. Around it, 12 smaller vessels formed a blockade around the nebula. General Briggs's face appeared on every screen throughout Dragon's Rest, his expression cold and professional. "This is General Briggs of the Terran Coalition. You are harboring stolen military assets and fugitives from justice. Surrender all Draconith and human personnel within 24 hours, or we will board your vessel by force." The transmission ended. In the command center, a hastily assembled group of humans and Draconith stared at each other. "We cannot fight them," Elder Frost said flatly. "We have no weapons. Our ship barely functions. They will tear us apart." "Then we don't fight," Danny said. He was standing near the central console, his fingers flying across controls that should have been completely alien to him. Weeks of working with Ash through their bond had taught him how to interface with Dragon's Rest systems in ways even the Draconith had forgotten. "We talk." "They are not here to talk," Dr. Okonkwo said. "Then we make them listen." Danny pulled up the communication system. "Captain Rodriguez, can your network reach the civilian channels?" "My ship has been broadcasting this whole time. Every news organization in known space is watching what happens here." "Good, because we are about to give them a show." Danny looked around the room. "Everyone who wants to speak, you will get your chance. We are going to broadcast everything. what we have built here, what the Coalition really wants. All of it. They will jam our signals, Elder Frost protested. Not if we broadcast on every frequency simultaneously. The ship's communication arrays are powerful enough to overwhelm their jammers, at least for a little while. Danny turned to Ash. Can the ship handle that much power draw? Through the bond, Ash consulted with Dragon's Rest itself. Yes, but it will drain our reserves. If this does not work, we will not have enough power to run life support for more than a few days. Then we better make it work. An hour later, they were ready. Danny stood in front of a camera with Ash beside him. Behind them, the command center showed a mix of humans and Draconith working together at various stations. Captain Rodriguez had helped set up cameras throughout the ship, showing the repairs, the cooperation, the young ones learning together. Danny took a breath and began speaking. My name is Danny Reeves. 4 months ago, I was a mechanic eating lunch in a maintenance corridor when someone crashed through the ceiling and asked if they could have my leftovers. That someone was Ash and she was starving and desperate. I gave her my food because it was the right thing to do. What I did not know was that this simple act would change my life and maybe change the galaxy. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Through the bond, he felt Ash's support giving him strength. The Draconith are not monsters or weapons or resources to be exploited. They are people. They have families, history, culture, and dreams. For 10,000 years, they hid from the galaxy. Because they did not want to be used in wars or torn apart for their technology. They chose peace and isolation over power. And now, because they dared to seek help when their home was dying, they are being threatened with military force. The camera panned to show the command center. Look at what we built here. Humans and Draconith working together, teaching each other, helping each other. We repaired systems that were failing. We shared knowledge that was being lost. We created something new, something neither species could do alone. And the Terran Coalition wants to destroy this because they cannot weaponize it. Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward. I was part of the Coalition research team. I have seen their plans. They do not want to study the Draconith. They want to harvest genetic material and create biological weapons. When I objected, they threatened to arrest me for treason. So I defected. Because some things are more important than a career. One by one, others spoke. Captain Rodriguez talked about why he helped strangers. Human engineers described working alongside Draconith students. Young Draconith spoke about learning to maintain their own ship for the first time in their lives. Elder Frost, her voice heavy with emotion, talked about watching her people slowly die until a desperate granddaughter brought back hope. The broadcast lasted 2 hours. Danny showed everything. The failing systems they had repaired, the hybrid solutions they had developed, the friendships that had formed. He pulled up Dr. Okonkwo's stolen files and displayed the Coalition's weapon specifications, letting the galaxy see exactly what they had planned for the Draconith. When it was done, Danny looked directly into the camera. General Briggs says we are criminals. Maybe we are, but we are criminals who chose compassion over profit, friendship over exploitation, and cooperation over conquest. If that is a crime, then I am guilty. But I will not surrender Ash or any Draconith to people who see them as weapons instead of persons. I will not abandon the family I found here. So if General Briggs wants to arrest us, he will have to come through every person on this ship because we stand together. He ended the transmission. For a moment, there was absolute silence in the command center. Then the communication console exploded with activity. Messages poured in from hundreds of worlds. News organizations requesting interviews. Government officials condemning the Coalition. Private citizens offering support. The broadcast had reached every corner of known space and the response was overwhelming. But more importantly, 3 ships in the Coalition blockade broke formation and jumped away. Then 2 more. Their crews had watched the broadcast and refused to participate. General Briggs appeared on screen again, his face red with anger. That broadcast changes nothing. You have 6 hours to surrender. No, Danny said simply. Come and take us if you can. But know that the whole galaxy is watching now. The next 4 hours were tense. More ships jumped away from the blockade. Others arrived, civilian vessels declaring themselves neutral observers. The Galactic Council called an emergency session, though their deliberations were slow. Then something unexpected happened. A Draconith warship dropped out of FTL space. It was ancient, its hull scarred from countless battles, but its weapon systems glowed with power. Elder Frost gasped. That is the Guardian. We thought it was lost 8,000 years ago. A voice came through the communication system, speaking in the Draconith language. Ash translated, her voice shaking. "It is asking what we need. Where did it come from?" Danny asked. "They heard my distress call," Ash said. "The one I sent before I crashed on Frontier Station Coldwell. They have been searching for us all this time. They heard the broadcast and followed the signal. The Guardian positioned itself between Dragon's Rest and the Coalition blockade. Its meaning was clear. To reach the generation ship, the military would have to go through it first." General Briggs' face appeared again. "One warship will not stop us." "Maybe not," said a new voice. It was Commander Wells from Frontier Station Coldwell. His image appeared beside the generals. "But it will give the Galactic Council time to finish their vote, which, I am pleased to inform you, just concluded 5 minutes ago. The Draconith have been granted protected status under interstellar law. Any military action against them is now illegal." Briggs's expression went through several interesting changes. The Council cannot. The Council can and did. The vote was nearly unanimous, influenced largely by a broadcast that showed exactly what your research division planned to do. "You are hereby ordered to withdraw all vessels immediately. If you refuse, you will be in violation of Council law, and other governments will be authorized to intervene." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the Coalition vessels began to jump away. The blockade dissolved, leaving only the Guardian and a handful of civilian ships. In the command center, humans and Draconith erupted in cheers. Danny felt his legs give out and he sat down hard on the floor. Ash curled around him, her scales warm against his side. "We did it," she said through the bond. "We actually did it." "You did it," Elder Frost said, walking over to them. "You stood against power with nothing but words and conviction, and you won. I did not think it was possible." "It should not have been necessary," Danny said tiredly. "People should not have to fight this hard just to exist. Perhaps. But because you fought, things will change. They must change because the whole galaxy saw what cooperation looks like." Elder Frost looked at the mixed group celebrating around them. "You have my apology, Mechanic, and my thanks." The next 3 months transformed Dragon's Rest. With the immediate threat gone and protected status secured, more help arrived. Engineers, teachers, doctors, all volunteers who wanted to be part of something historic. The generation ship's restoration accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. The hybrid human Draconith techniques they had developed became a new field of study. Universities offered courses in interspecies cooperation engineering. The Dragon's Rest method was taught across known space as an example of what different species could accomplish together. More Draconith were found, drawn by the Guardian signal. The colony's population grew from 47 to over 200 in just 3 months. With more people came more knowledge, including elders who remembered the old maintenance techniques. Danny became the chief engineer of Dragon's Rest, though he insisted he was just a mechanic who got lucky. He taught classes to both humans and Draconith, sharing everything he had learned about making 2 different technologies work as one. Dr. Okonkwo established the Interspecies Cultural Exchange, documenting both Draconith history and the unique culture that was emerging from human-Draconith cooperation. She published papers that won awards and changed how the galaxy thought about cross-species interaction. Captain Rodriguez turned his trade ship into a permanent supply line, bringing resources and new volunteers to Dragon's Rest. His crew became famous for their dedication, and Rodriguez's run became a term for putting ethics above profit. 6 months after the broadcast, Danny sat in the same corridor where he had first met Ash. It was a tradition now, eating lunch there every day. Today's meal was much better than that original sandwich, thanks to Dragon's Rest's restored food production systems. He was halfway through his lunch when a young Draconith, barely larger than Ash had been when they met, approached shyly. Her scales were bright silver, almost glowing in the corridor lights. "Excuse me," she said in careful universal standard. "Can I have leftovers?" Danny smiled. This happened at least once a week now. Young Draconith asking the question that had started everything, learning the tradition that had become the symbol of Dragon's Rest. He broke his sandwich in half and offered it to her. "Of course, but only if you sit and talk while you eat. That is part of the tradition too." The young dragon sat down, accepting the food gratefully. "My name is Spark. I am new here. My family just arrived from the outer colonies. Welcome to Dragon's Rest, Spark. I am Danny. I know who you are. Everyone knows. You are the mechanic who saved us. She took a bite of the sandwich, her eyes widening. This is very good. The food production systems are working well now. We have your people to thank for teaching us how to maintain them properly. They sat together, sharing the meal and conversation. Danny explained his work, and Spark talked about her hopes to become an engineer like him. Through the bond, he felt Ash approaching before she appeared around the corner. Teaching another student? She asked, settling down beside them. Her scales glowed with contentment. Sharing lunch with a new friend, Danny corrected. Above them, through the reinforced windows, the nebula's purple light painted everything in soft colors. Dragon's Rest hummed with life and activity. In the distance, Danny could hear both human and Draconith voices working together on some project. It had started with a simple question and a shared meal. Can I have leftovers? The mechanic had looked at a desperate stranger and seen someone who needed help. And that one moment of kindness had rippled outward, changing everything. The miracle was not that the galaxy had changed overnight. It was that people on both sides had been willing to try, to trust, to work together despite fear and doubt. It was that a mechanic and a dragon had formed a bond that should not have been possible, and used it to build something beautiful. What are you thinking about? Ash asked through the bond. About how I came out here to hide from my life and instead found a new one. About how the worst day of my past led me to the best days of my future. He reached over and touched her scales gently. About how grateful I am that you asked for my leftovers. And I am grateful you said yes, Ash replied. Spark watched them both with wide, curious eyes. Is it true that you are bonded? That you can feel what each other feels? It is true, Danny said. What does it feel like? Danny thought about that. How did you describe having another consciousness constantly present in your mind? How did you explain the comfort of never being truly alone? Or the way emotions flowed between them like a conversation without words? It feels like home, he said finally. No matter where I am, as long as Ash is alive, I am home. Through the bond, he felt Ash's love and agreement. They sat together in comfortable silence, sharing space with a new friend as Dragon's Rest continued its journey through the stars. Above them, human and Draconith continued to work together, building a future neither species could have imagined just months before. And it had all started because a mechanic looked at a stranger and saw a person who needed help. Sometimes miracles really do begin with leftovers.